I purposely waited before I gave my commentary on the tragedy which took place at the Covenant Christian School in Nashville, Tennessee. See, I personally believe in the first 24 hours, neither side, left or right, should have anything to say. There are grieving families who've not just simply lost children, but their lives have changed forever. And they need a minute to realize how much their lives have changed. And then, as the narrative began to come out, as we began to find out that the shooter, Audrey Hale, was in fact transitioning from being a female to a male, with their preferred pronouns being he, him, which is now was, were, we began to hear the mainstream media talk about the fact that this was brought on by conservatives, brought on by Republicans, brought on by the legislative attack that states have launched against trans people. Of course, immediately, the right sprang into action, and I just waited. And now that 48 hours have passed, I'm going to give you my commentary and ask this question. Is this going to be considered a hate crime?
Let's get ready to rumble! You can't handle the truth. Somebody to the top of the line!
Make sure you're a subscriber to the channel, smack the bell, click the word all to make sure you get notification of my daily rants. Right out the gate, the media tried to set a narrative. They knew who the shooter was once everything had been verified, identified, and they knew exactly how the right would respond, and they wanted to make sure that they could spin this narrative and try to control what people thought and the information that was coming to them. And so everything immediately began to be framed by the weapons, these assault weapons. An AR-15 is not a machine gun, but the way they get described by the media and politicians, these assault weapons, they're not holding a trigger and 100 rounds are going off. It is a semi-automatic. You have to keep pressing the trigger to discharge ammunition. It's a rifle. And this individual, who at one time apparently was a student in the school, went in, killed 3 children, all the age of 9, and 3 adults, one being the principal who literally threw themselves at the shooter. The police went in record time, and they turned the he, him into was, were. And I hate to be that callous, but the way the media is trying to now portray this person as a martyr. They were a martyr for trans rights. You have people commenting that CNN kept referring to this individual as a her, and they didn't do a correction. Really? We're worried about if we get her pronouns right rather than the fact that there's dead children. And this hatred and hostility is being directed at Christians. And I'm going to cut right to it because Christianity, theologically and philosophically, is at odds with the concept of transgenderism. And I don't care what liberal pastors are out there trying to say that eunuchs in the Bible were transgender. No, they weren't. Genesis chapters 1, chapters 2 make it abundantly clear that God created male and female. Male and female created he them. He created 2 distinct genders and sexes. Doesn't matter whether you're a Christian or not listening to this. This is the teaching of the Bible. This is what Christians believe. By the way, this is what science proves. So this idea that somehow we can reconcile the Bible with transgenderism, no, you can't. And so based on that very dogmatic rudiment of theology, There is a reason trans individuals who are somehow become the new heroes of society. Even J.K. Rowling, the atheist author of the Harry Potter series, is asking the question, what if all you people are wrong? Because they keep trying to cancel her. And she said, what other group, referring to women, what other group has to embrace their oppressor? I love how she refers to all males as oppressors. But she said, what other group, other than women, who have fought so hard to get the rights that we do have now got to step aside and lay down so that people who have never actually gone through any type of surgery, have never made the full commitment, but just simply some guy decides, I'm a girl, he can go into a girl's room and compete in female sports and take all the accolades, take all the awards, become Woman of the Year. And J.K. Rowling says, this is insane. And she's right. And women, in particular the feminists, are lining up and they're bowing down. Drew Barrymore, newsflash, Dylan does not have gender dysphoria. Dylan is a narcissist who was suffering from depression because his acting career wasn't going so hot. So you put him on antidepressants and then he decided, you know what, I'm a girl. And he's just been embraced as like, this is normal. News reports talking about this happened in Tennessee because Tennessee has targeted trans people by passing laws denying minors trans care. Imagine that. Passing laws that say before you castrate a boy, you know what? We're going to call a timeout here. Laws that don't allow drag shows in public schools. Imagine that. We don't want some 45-year-old dude waving his junk in the face of a 10-year-old. How awful. And no, I don't want gay people, trans people, or even straight people talking in detail with 5-year-olds about their personal sex lives and what goes on in their bedrooms. Joy Reid over at PMSNBC basically said what happened in Tennessee is the fault of conservatives and Republicans. What about Audrey Hale, the person who actually picked up the weapon, wrote out a manifesto that we're not allowed to see, by the way? And when she walked into that Christian school, she was doing what many in the trans community are calling for now, violence. Jocelyn Berry, the one-time press secretary of Governor Hobbs in Arizona. And you remember how well the gubernatorial race in Arizona just went. Well, apparently, this pistol-packing mama came out with this tweet right after the shooting in Nashville. This is us going after transphobes. So imagine, right after a tragic school shooting that leaves 6 people dead, the Arizona governor's press secretary posts a picture of a woman with 2 guns pulled shooting transphobic people. You know, if somebody had posted something like that before the shooting had happened in Nashville, after that shooting happened, they would have gone back into their Twitter feed and erased that. But nope, not Jocelyn Berry. And today, thank God, she resigned. Audrey Hale very well could have been part of this Trans Day of Vengeance, which is coming up on Saturday. They're going to meet in front of the Supreme Court in Washington, D.C., and they are literally calling for violence. You have left progressives like Cenk Uygur over at the Young Turks saying, you know what? I think trans people need to take up arms because of the genocide being held against them.
And I always tell people, don't get guns. It'll make you less safe. I'm going to make an exception here for trans people. They are actually in danger. They have had hundreds of laws passed against them. They have right-wing media ginning up fear against them 24/7. They are targeted more than any other group in America. And if anyone should get guns, it should be trans Americans.
Can you imagine if Donald Trump or anyone on Team MAGA said anything like that? As they continue to try to create January 6th into something that it was not. But yet the left can talk violence and nothing happens. Marjorie Taylor Greene first pointed out what the Trans Day of Vengeance was, and her Twitter account was pulled. Now, thankfully, it's been restored, but Twitter did a dragnet and pulled down all of the groups that were for this day of violence being called. And unfortunately, because of the algorithm, Marjorie Taylor Greene got caught up in that. She has since had her account reinstated. But who is it that's calling for violence? Is it the left or the right? And again, Audrey Hale targeted Christians, traditional Christians. Why is this not being called a hate crime? I guarantee you, before this week is over, trans groups will somehow declare him, a hero. And that this was brought on by the Christians themselves. Well, thank God there are people pushing back against this. One of them, even over at Faux News, formerly known as Fox News, Tucker Carlson, called this for exactly what it is.
You're not supposed to talk about any of this, apparently. And the authorities in Nashville certainly are not planning to talk about it. They're doing their best not to. Here's the police chief of Nashville explaining that while he's happy to talk about the shooter's guns, he's not going to tell you anything about the shooter's motives. Watch.
So in the manifesto, there's several different writings about other locations. There were locations, there was talks about the school. There was a map of the school, a drawing of how potentially she would enter and the assaults that would take place. There's quite a bit of writing to it. I have not read the entire manifesto. Our team and the FBI has been working on this.
Well, that's interesting. Within what seemed like minutes, we saw pictures of the rifles and the pistol. We now have horrifying body cam footage from within the school. So unsettling, we're not going to show it to you. But somehow we can't see the manifesto in which the killer explains why she killed. Why is that? It's not accidental. Well, you know exactly why it is. Because it would make the obvious undeniable. The trans movement is targeting Christians, including with violence. Most Christian leaders in this country don't want to admit that. Admitting it might force them to take deeply unfashionable positions. But it is true, and anyone who's paying attention knows that it's true. And so, like most true things at this point, it is officially suppressed. Here, for example, is Joe Biden yelping again about how it's all your fault when these tragedies happen because you've got guns at home. This is from yesterday.
We have to do more to stop gun violence. It's ripping our communities apart, ripping the soul of this nation, ripping at the very soul of the nation. And we have to do more to protect our schools so they aren't turned into prisons. You know, the shooter in this situation reportedly had 2 assault weapons and a pistol, 2 AK-47. So I call on Congress again to pass my assault weapons ban.
So we're going to prevent you from learning why the shooter did it, and we don't have to guess because she wrote a whole manifesto about why she did it. And we know that she did that because she told a friend of hers on Instagram that she did it. But we can't see it. We can only talk about the guns. We can't know what kind of drugs she was taking, what kind of hormones or SSRIs or benzodiazepines. We can only guess. We can only talk about the guns. Pass my assault weapons ban. That'll fix the problem. But Joe Biden is lying about that. He knows that he's lying, and you know that he's lying.
It's exactly right. I want you to think about something. Somebody suffering with depression. I don't know who I am. I don't fit in. They get treated. They get put on antidepressants. It's decided maybe you're the wrong gender. So then we start adding on top of the antidepressants we're putting into them, we start adding all types of other medications to them, starting to literally mess with their biological chemistry, like there's some type of lab experiment. How could anybody think any of this is going to end well? The last 3 mass shootings in this country have been done by transgendered individuals. How come the media is not talking about that? Who is it that's pulling the trigger? Is it the left or the right? But make no mistake, the left is all out declaring war on Christianity, traditional faith, traditional values. Anyone that upholds to those ideals, unfortunately, that makes us the new enemy.